So however you want to say it.
Group.
Yes, ding, 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 grouping. So just like P stood for parentheses, G is going to be grouping. So this GEMDAS that I'm talking about, this is just an acronym to help you with order of operations. And by order of operations, I'm referring to the steps that you do a math problem in. The first step you're always going to look for is grouping. By grouping, I mean it can be parentheses, it can be brackets, it can be a fraction, meaning the top is one group, the bottom is another group. That's why I like to call it grouping, because on a fraction, if you have 13 plus 2 divided by 3 plus 2, you've got to group this together. You've got to do the top of the fraction first, and then the bottom of the fraction. Those are two groups. So in this case, before you do the division, you're going to do the grouping. So you have 15 over 5. You have to do the grouping first, on the top and the bottom of the fraction. I'll do this, so this kind of separates this a little bit. Okay. The rest of these do follow along from the same ones you saw in high school. What does E stand for?
Exponent.
Exponents. What is an exponent?
Power.
A little number. That's exactly right. It's also called power. So if I have 2 to the little number, what's a shortcut for that? 2 times itself. There's a name for it. It's a 2 though. Squared. 2 squared. This is going to be 2 times 2, 4. You can also do 3 squared, 4 squared. It's nice to know those squares. You're not going to be forced to memorize any of those. It will make your mathematics go a lot smoother if you have some of that arithmetic down. You're not forced to do that in this class. If you go to the third power, there's a shortcut for that. Anyone remember what it is? Cubed. Yes, we'll do 4 cubed. So that means this little exponent means take your base and multiply it by itself that many times. So 4 times 4 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16 times 4 is 64. Okay? What happens if you have an exponent that's not a whole number? Let's say 25 is raised to the 1/2. Any idea how to do that? Lorraine is correct. This is completely equal to the square root of 25. For right now, the only fractional exponents you're going to see are 1/2. However, I want to show you the pattern here and see if you can identify what happens. So this is kind of just be a little bubble over here to the side. I'm going to erase these and I'm going to put it over here. So here's your little bubble. This bubble's not needed right now, but I want to show you what it is. So you can write this down in your notes if you'd like. It's not going to be on the first exam. But Lorraine talked about how 25 to 1/2 is going to be the square root of 25. If I took 16 to the 1/3, that's going to be the cube root of 16. Right. If I took 64 to the 2/3, that's going to be equal to, does anyone want to guess? It's the cube root, good, of what?
Of 64.
64.
64 squared.
64 squared.
There you go.
Nice job. Okay. You guys are seeing the pattern here. If you're not yet, not a big deal. Let's try one more. If you have the pattern, don't say it out loud, please. So 128 to the 3/4. This is going to be, everyone think about it.
4th power.
Shh, don't say it yet. Just think about it.
Oh.
Okay, now.
4 is on the outside.
4 is on the outside? What do you mean by the outside?
Outside of the square. Outside of the square root.
So be careful that now just semantics. It's not a square root once we change the number.
It's a quad.
Sure, make it up. A quadrant root? I don't know. What I call it is a 4th root. So you're taking the 4th root of 128
To the 3rd power.
to the 3rd power. Okay? Again, you don't need to know this right now. Just a little side note as what it is. The one you do need to know is the square root. I'm sorry. To the 1/2 is equal to the square root of 25. Okay? Yeah, that's all I'm going to go with for now. Okay? All right, so that's E. Now what's the M?
Multiplication.
Oh, I just made a big typo on this. I'm so sorry, guys. This is set up a little incorrectly. My bad. It should be MD and AS. Why is that? Anyone remember? Yes, you do it at the same time. It's just whichever one comes first. You read it left to right, and you multiply and divide at the same time. What I mean by that, or not at the same time, but at the same steps. What I mean by that is, we got a problem like this. 3 times 2 divided by 4, no, divided by 6. Okay? Because multiplying and dividing is the same step, you just read it left to right. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1. Let's try it out. You just go left to right and you hit it as soon as it comes up. Same thing with adding and subtracting. So let me put these words up here. Multiply, divide, and add and subtract. We'll do one example again together in a second, and I talk about how you go left to right on this, because I think that might be a little foreign to some of you guys. And I'll give a good example. I'll do it right now. We're doing okay on time. Wait a second, I'll give an example on the fly. 6 divided by 3 times 2. Okay? So, what's the answer to this? Anyone want to guess? So there's two answers that I can see you guys getting. You can either get 4 or 2. I'm sorry, no, 1, thank you. Thank you. 4 or 1. One of those is correct, one of those is not correct.
You read it left to right, so the
You've got to go left to right. If you did multiplication before division,
you're wrong.
you're wrong. You got to go left to right, and whatever comes in that step. So because I hit a division, I do that immediately. 6 divided by 3 is 2, times 2 is 4. 4 is correct, 6 and 1 is incorrect. Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's go on to, what do I have next for us here? Absolute value. This problem is from your homework packet. It's the only one in this section that talks about absolute value. So we're going to touch on it very, very quickly. We're not going to spend a ton of time on it. But absolute value it does show up here and one other time in the course. What this means is it's a function. And whenever you see a function that has these two vertical lines and some number inside of it, what this is measuring, these two vertical lines with some number, is really absolute value. You'll see it shortcutted as abs value sometimes on some of the calculators. You also just see it shortcutted as abs. It stands for absolute value. What that's saying is, really, what it means in layman's terms is how far is this value from, I'm going to leave this blank. If you know it, please don't say it yet. I'm going to get you guys to come up with it. Okay? So, absolute value of 6 is 6. Absolute value of 8 is 8. Absolute value of 0 is 0. Absolute value of -3 is 3. Absolute value of -4, it's really ugly 4, is a 4. So, what is the absolute value measuring? How far the value is from?
1.
Not from 1.
X.
Not from x.
0.
From 0. How far a value is from 0? So, it essentially takes any positive value and leaves it positive. Any negative value turns it positive. How far away is -3 from 0 on the number line? 3. How far is -4 from 0 on the number line? 4. Things get more complicated when you have variables involved. I don't believe we'll run into that again this semester, but if we had, so that's all we're going to talk about for this course. Okay? Side note, I just get excited about math. Not needed for this course, but absolute value, the graph. We'll talk more about graphs in a few weeks. The absolute value of, oh, this is so much fun. Okay, so this red line, not needed for right now, y equals x squared. The graph of absolute value of x, anyone want to guess what it looks like? I'm going to draw it up here in blue. Y equals absolute value of x. Anyone want to guess what it looks like?
Upside down.
Nice job, Eddie, right? Nice. It's a V. Good guess with the upside down. Who's that? Nick, right? Nick? Yeah, good guess with that. No, but in this case, it's a V. Cool, right? Yeah. We'll talk about why that is when we get there, even though we don't talk about this course. It's a fun little function, so we'll talk about that. Okay, so side note done. Absolute value is done. This problem up here above, the first step is grouping. So I look inside this group, I'm going to add that, leaves a 5 squared. Inside this group, 4 minus absolute value of -5, it's going to be 5. So that's the -5 turns into, or this
Would
negative.
you be adding that? You would be adding the 2, right? Because the 4 and then the absolute value will be 4 plus 5.
No, so, okay. Our first step is grouping, right? Our first step is grouping. So you look inside the groups. You look as far inside as you can. So inside this group, we've got this function first. So we've got to deal with the absolute value of -5. So it becomes 4 minus the absolute value of -5, which is just a regular 5. Okay? That's a little tricky there. So, and then we look inside this grouping, which is just 1 plus 4. Okay. I'm not going to finish that problem right now because there's a few more things I want to cover before we get there. Okay. Oh, let's take a pause and get you to work on problems. So, what I'd like for you to do is everyone's going to work on a few of these problems. Great example. Is this too small to read? Can you guys read this? You're too small. It's all right? Okay. So if you feel like this is all super, super easy, I want you to start level 1 here with this red problem. If you think you've got this and you want to challenge yourself a little bit, go to level 2. If you really want to be challenged, try level 3. Once you finish one of those, if you still got a few minutes, I'm going to give you guys about 3 minutes to work on one of these. You can try another one of these problems. I've got all the solutions right here. Okay? So take about 3 minutes, solve at least one of those problems. And then I'll solve them. The answers are right here. I'll float around and see how you guys are doing on them. It looks small. You guys can see it. Remember, GEMDOS.